Hello and welcome to another weekly update, our week update video here at North Carolina Family. I'm Mitch alongside Jerry and our president John Rustin, and we are excited to bring you this weekly update video for the week ending on April the 15th. It is airing on Good Friday. That's right. So happy Holy Week.
Yes,
and happy Easter weekend to those of you that are watching this on Saturday or Easter Sunday. Jerry, there's a lot going on, and so with Easter on the horizon and us celebrating our risen Savior, I'm just so excited that we have the opportunity to talk about some of the things that honor God and promote the Christian worldview and values that we all espouse.
Right. One thing I want to mention, you talk about Easter. This is one of the many encouraging things about our legislature. I think we mentioned to you before, they start every House and Senate session with prayer. And the members this week clearly, shared the gospel as they were praying about why we need to be celebrating Easter, what Easter is all about. So I know that we have a religious freedom bill that's part of what's been introduced, but people are exercising, thankfully, in a wonderful way, their religious freedom within our legislature.
Yeah. Well, and often elected officials get a bad name.
Yeah.
And some of them clearly deserve it, but there are a lot of members, because we're working with these folks on a daily basis, there are a lot of members in the North Carolina General Assembly who are devout in their faith, they're outspoken, they're evangelical in their faith, and they really believe that they have been called by the Lord there to serve, and that is their aim, is to honor God through their service, and not only in the way that they do it, but what they do and how they interact with other people. And so it's a great encouragement to have them, pray before the sessions, but also just to have the interaction and the witness that they are down there. And we certainly seek to encourage them in their good work as we have an opportunity to be down at the legislature on a daily basis. So yeah, it's a neat thing.
It is.
One of the big things that they're doing this week, 50 of the members of the General Assembly, the Senate, they have originated and proposed and now passed their version of the state budget.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that. $32.6 billion with a B, $billion, which is interesting because some states about half our size, just slightly to our south, their budget's about $10 billion more than that, ironically. Hey, friends in South Carolina. The governor's budget for year one was $33.6 billion, and then in year two of the biennium was $34.3 billion. Throwing out a lot of numbers there. Let's talk about the budget. What's going on with it? What do we need to know about it? Words like conservative have been thrown out, bipartisan certainly, and then this idea of tax cuts. Let's talk about the budget as the Senate has passed it.
Well, it is an increase over the current year's budget. As you said, it was $32.6 billion is the proposed Senate budget. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
But relative to some bills that we've seen, budget bills that we've seen in recent years, I would say this is a pretty streamlined budget bill. Very often there are major policy issues that are included in the budget, in addition to all the appropriation or spending items that are in there. And I would say, especially on some of the issues that we are particularly concerned about that have gotten a lot of attention in recent years, i.e. casino gambling, video lottery, tens of thousands of video lottery terminals in North Carolina, proposals to legalize marijuana either for medical or recreational purposes. Those provisions are not in this version of the Senate budget. And so we are very pleased to see that. There was a lot of debate as the bill was discussed in committee and on the Senate floor about the proposals by the Senate to continue to ratchet down the corporate and individual income tax, and what that might do if there is, if the revenues to the state aren't what they are anticipated to be. And so these are creating some interesting discussions. While the bill was on the Senate floor on Wednesday, Democrats offered in the neighborhood of like 50 different amendments. Most of those were disposed of by the Republican majority. And so there are just a lot of discussion and robust debate over the budget, but the proposed Senate budget remained pretty much intact as it went through the process of going through committees and then debate on the Senate floor.
And every time you listen to the debate, it gives me a whole new appreciation for the hard work that's done. Just imagine, $32 billion. How do you decide how that money is allocated? And as you say, John, they did make some cuts in certain areas. They did bump things up in some. One of the things that I know I heard, and I guess it related to the issues we followed, a lot of the proposed amendments from Democrat members addressed opportunity scholarships.
Yes.
They were saying, okay, money has been cut from this program, and sometimes they're legitimate programs. They have to decide, we can't fund all these things. So they were proposing, take some of the money from opportunity scholarships, which is interesting because it just was a reminder of how controversial for some that issue is. Although we hear statewide there's a lot of support, bipartisan support for that. Just another quick side note is one of the things that they tend to point to is sometimes they were talking about overall taking the money, but especially taking it from the higher income families. And as we've discussed before, the way the scholarship works, as your income level goes up, the amount of the scholarship grant goes down. And to argue against these people receiving anything, I mean, percentage-wise, you always hear the numbers, higher income earners pay a huge percentage of the overall tax dollars. So they're supporting education. If part of that comes back out and it's not the same amount that's allocated to public schools, I don't know, but that was an ongoing part of those 50 or so amendments, the opportunity scholarship, let's take this out. So it was interesting that was part of the debate that went on.
Well, and I think that is evidence of a difference of priorities and perspectives, and very significant differences of opinion. And we saw that in a number of amendments that were offered. There's certainly, if the Democrats had their way, the budget would look entirely different.
Sure.
And not to be particularly partisan about it, but there is a very clear difference of opinion, priorities, and perspective.
Absolutely.
By members of both parties, and even among members within the Republican and Democratic caucuses.
So the 50 members of the Senate have now sent the budget over to the 120 members of the House. They'll take a look at it. That'll keep going through the next couple of months, most likely. Hopefully weeks, but most likely months. And we'll keep you up to date on that. I'll tell you one thing all 170 members of the General Assembly can agree on. They're taking next week off.
Yes.
There's an adjournment resolution for this next week, the coming week. And to be specific on the dates, April the 17th, which is when it starts. Monday, April the 28th is when they will resume session at noon. 12 noon to be exact, because I didn't know there was a different noon, but 12 noon to be exact. And so they're taking the week off.
And this is interesting because normally they would kind of recess and still have what they call skeletal sessions.
Yes.
To keep the session going. But in this case, they're really doing a hard stop on the session on this past Thursday to reconvene in a week from Monday. And so that's a little bit uncommon, but this is one bill that the House and the Senate have agreed upon. It's a joint resolution, but it does basically have the legislature taking the week off this next week.
Jerry, I got bad news for you. From what I've been told, the building is going to shut down, which means no cafeteria lunches next week.
And no office. Where's Jerry going to office? Because
His blue tape office is going to be closed.
Yes.
I guess he'll
be here.
You're welcome back in your office.
Yes.
Well, and I think hopefully this is a healthy sign. They're recognizing this is a part-time legislature.
Yes.
People have their families. They have, many of them, their jobs back home.
Yes.
So it does give them that time. But it also explains the level of activity currently in committees. As we mentioned last week, May 8th is the crossover deadline where non-revenue bills have to pass either the House or the Senate. So every committee meeting this week, literally on what you call a laundry list of bills, they're trying to get as many of them passed in either of the two chambers before May 8th, and that includes this week away next week. So
Well, and you mentioned families.
Yes.
And one very exciting and wonderful
Yes.
occurrence, development that took place this week is Speaker of the North Carolina House, Destin Hall, and his wife had a baby.
Brand new baby.
A brand new baby.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, and congratulations to them.
Congratulations.
Our prayers are certainly with them and their extended family as they welcome this new life into their household.
Hopefully
So-
you get some sleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and a witness for him. I mean, hopefully any father would do that. He was not there this
Yeah,
week.
that's right.
Right.
That's right.
So he was home
Had his
for the
priorities
glory and to
where they
be
needed to
there.
be.
Majority
Yep.
Leader Jones had the opportunity on the floor to announce the birth of their brand new baby, and we're excited for the Hall family. Let's get into some of the bills that we're tracking, some of the bills that we've taken action on, and some of the ones that we're just closely monitoring. The social gambling bill, that's HB 424, House Bill 424. John, tell us what's going on with that bill.
Well, we've talked about this bill before, and this is the bill that would allow gambling for money or other items of value, including houses and farms.
Yeah.
You know,
You can literally bet the farm.
you can, and we've heard anecdotally from people whose family members have bet the farm in these high stakes home poker games and lost it.
Which are currently illegal.
Which are currently illegal according to North Carolina law. This bill would allow, quote, social gambling in homes, residences, and community clubhouses, like in your neighborhood, and they would be essentially legal. So it would legalize poker games, craps, dice games, those types of things in homes all across the state. So it could make essentially every home and community clubhouse a gambling hall. We've expressed concern about that in the initial committee, the Judiciary 1 committee in the House. The bill passed out of that committee, was held up, came back to the committee after some refinements were made to the bill, some improvements, and we would admit that they were improvements. However, those changes or amendments to the bill did not change the fundamental flaw in the bill that it would legalize high-stakes poker and blackjack and other types of gambling all across North Carolina. And so we testified again in opposition to the bill, and will continue to oppose this bill along the way because we just don't need further expansion of legalized gambling in North Carolina.
So that bill has been referred back to the Rules Committee. The best of my understanding, that's the last stop generally before it would make it to the House floor. We'll keep you up to date on where that bill is throughout the process.
And then, of course, the bill would have to go through the Senate process
Senate as well.
and be signed by
Yes.
the governor in order to be enacted into law. So it still has a ways to go. Certainly opportunities for folks to get involved and voice their opinions
Absolutely.
to their elected officials about it.
A bill that we are in huge support of. It made its way through the House process. It has now passed the House, is HB 636, promoting a wholesome content for children, for minors. Jerry, tell us a little bit about this bill, what that looks like, what the House debate looked like.
All right. Well, it's interesting because I think probably all of us have heard aspects of this issue for years now. Local school board meetings where people are going, this book is in my child's library,
Yes.
and they start reading from the book,
Yeah,
and, they're
And they
like,
get,
"Stop,
and they get
stop!"
censored.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yeah.
you're going, so thankfully, what the legislature is doing to try to respond to this reality is to create not a state mandate that covers all the schools and all the libraries, but it's allowing each school district or
Yes.
school unit
Yes.
to set up a way to say, okay, this is not acceptable to have in our library. And the debate was very intense on this. I don't know.
That mechanism, by the way, is a 10-member team, 5 employees of that school unit or school district. They're appointed, all 10 members are appointed by the superintendent of the school district, and then 5 members of the public, specifically parents who are vetted by the school superintendent, and then those 10 members review those books, determine what content is age appropriate and wholesome for those children. But you're right, the debate was vociferous at times, it was heated at times. I believe Representative Neil Jackson, who's the primary sponsor for this bill, did an outstanding job articulating within a frame specifically what this bill does. It protects children from dangerous, illicit pornography, vulgar, and awful awful
Sexually
content,
charged
sexually charged content
yeah.
that they have, that they cannot unsee.
Right.
Well, and this is what's interesting, because everybody goes, this is a challenge with any situation like this. How do you define those terms? How do you apply them? And I know they made a couple of references to the Supreme Court ruling at one point that says, well, you know it when you see it. Well, that obviously doesn't give clear guidelines, but the reality needs to be addressed, and that became very clear in the debate. And as you say, we mentioned earlier about the witness of members. Representative Jackson himself, he worked in the business community, he's been a pastor for years. He's amazing. He spoke the truth in love. He was very strong and very gracious. And not to get into too much of the details, but this is part of the reality that we see everywhere and heard yesterday or earlier this week, because the debate was in committee and on the floor, is some members would say, well, this is a book that has been banned, or these books have been, and I'm reading them to my children. Well, and the point was made, well, you can make that choice, go to your library or go buy the books. But it also, I guess a quick side note on this, it helped me understand, I don't think they saw it this way, but it's making the point for school choice. Because you're realizing some parents are going to say, if you think that's fine to be in the library, I need to find another school with a different kind of library. Yeah. So it's a big issue that, again, thankfully people like Representative Jackson and others are trying to address and find a constructive way to work through it.
And this bill also requires the State Board of Education to maintain a list that is publicly accessible of bills that have been deemed by these committees to be inappropriate. And so that will be a helpful guideline for other committees around the state who are looking at these books. Is this book on the disapproved list or has been kicked out by a particular school district? Then that's something that they ought to consider. Now, it's not going to all be consistent across the state, but that's going to be a helpful tool for parents and these committees to access and to be able to reference.
I think when we get bills like this, it's important to keep the narrative within the guidelines of the frame in which it's offered. And ultimately, this is a parental rights bill. It gives parents the opportunity to parent their children the way that they see fit, and not for the government through the school system to proliferate harmful, obscene, vulgar, pornographic, sexually charged material. So the misnomer that it's going to strip parents' rights away, it certainly does not do that. It just keeps the government through the public school system and its libraries from allowing this content to be seen by minors.
Yes, and as such, protecting especially elementary school kids from stumbling upon inappropriate content in books in the school library.
Absolutely.
So, yep.
Another bill aimed at protecting children, HB, I've got the numbers wrong here, and so I'm not going to give you the House bill number, but it's a Social Media for Minors bill.
I've got the bill number.
You do. Thank you.
It's
John to the rescue.
House Bill 301.
Thank you.
And it would essentially prohibit minors under the age of 14 from signing up for social media platforms.
Yes.
And it would also require minors that are 14 and 15 to get parental consent, or for these social media platforms to obtain parental consent of minors who are 14 and 15 before they can sign up and utilize these social media apps on their phones and elsewhere. And so it really cracks down on that. Of course, we have read many reports about the harmful effects of social media and just kids being on their phones all the time.
Yes.
And a lot of the awful, objectionable content that comes through, and so this is designed at protecting them from that. The bill also has a variety of different penalty provisions within it that would hold these social media companies liable for violating the statute.
But not the parents. That's been something that has been debated back and forth. It doesn't hold the parents liable, as some previous iterations of bills around the country have done. I think this is good. It gives parents another tool in their tool bag to keep their children from the harms of predators online, and once again sing that pornographic content online. So we certainly applaud Representative Zenger and others who are focused on this. One more, actually two more, but they're kind of in tandem. Hemp and kratom bills specifically on public school, which we'll talk about HB 328 first. This bill lumps Delta 8, Delta 9 into the same category as tobacco, which is currently illegal on school grounds. This bill would include Delta 8, Delta 9 kratom products, hemp-derived products from being on school grounds in public schools. So certainly good. Carla Cunningham from Mecklenburg has proposed this. It's a bipartisan effort. 329, which is very interesting, it uses the word encourage to tell Christian private parochial schools that they ought to do the same. It does not have an enforcement mechanism. It doesn't impede any sort of judgment or action on Christian schools that they choose not to do so. It simply says the public schools are doing it. My imagination, gentlemen, is that most of these Christian schools, or private schools, already have some sort of enforcement mechanism for Delta 8, Delta 9, and tobacco products.
Right.
That's what I'm going to guess.
They go hand in hand.
Yes.
And one applies to public schools and one applies to private schools.
Yes.
But effectively seek to do the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, again, it's good. I know last year there was an attempt, some of these products that are available, and I know the big part of this was what they call hemp-derived products and tobacco, and then kratom, apparently in some of the testimony, they were talking about by itself, what it doesn't do, but when it has a lot of other substances. It's overwhelming to think about what is out there today. It's a lot of it unregulated. People don't know what's in the products, but they're obviously seeing one way to address this is to say when it comes to school grounds, no, we don't want these there. Yeah. We're going to protect our children as best we can when they're in that environment. Because obviously the access could be, and maybe is, overwhelming when you've got children sharing things that nobody even knows what they are or what effects they have.
At a bare minimum, it hinders the classroom and the ability for children to learn.
Right.
Above that, it's harmful to children.
Yes.
Period. Right. Good news for Opie, Aunt B, Barney Fife, and Andy Griffith. HB 557. Jerry, did we get to see the cast of the Andy Griffith Show?
Well, and I didn't Wednesday? Get up close because I tried to go see them, and they were kind of, I got a picture of them outside where they had what looked like the original police car. It had a cardboard of Sheriff Andy and Barney, but some of the other people looked like the live characters. Now, apparently, you helped me realize I don't think they were the originals because they would be in their 90s probably.
Andy Griffith was at the State House this past week. A play actor of Andy Griffith, in case you're wondering, I thought, yes, you're absolutely right, a play actor of Andy Griffith. The Andy Griffith Show is on its way to being the official TV show of the state of North Carolina.
Makes perfect sense.
I want to whistle right now. Now, some people brought up this idea that there are other shows that have been filmed in the state. And as one member said, I've never seen Tree Hill, North Carolina, or Dawson's, whatever. Yeah. Andy Griffith is one of those shows that I think if it's on, you're at least stopping for a second to see what episode it is and what mischief Opie has gotten into and how Andy's going to fix this situation.
Well, the word I heard is that the cast of Andy Griffith that was at the legislature was asking, where is this Jerry Royal guy?
Yeah.
We want to meet him.
How many episodes were you on?
And Jerry was like, Jerry was doing his work at the building, and so he was not available to meet with the cast. So we are debating right now and looking for vendors to provide a cardboard cutout of Jerry Royal so he can be available for pictures and interviews at any time, and we'll have several of those positioned down at the General Assembly.
You can find the cardboard cutout on the 6th floor of the Legislative Office Building with a piece of blue tape around it in his office.
Well, to bring it back to the bill that was being debated, you burst my bubble because from a distance I thought, that's Ernest T. Bass. That one wasn't cardboard.
It was a fake beard. I know you, in case you ever watch this.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's bring it in. Happy Easter. Happy Holy Week from our team at North Carolina Family. On behalf of Jerry, John, Anna, Scott, Heather, Lucy, our entire team, happy Easter, John.
Yes, and let me just remind you, if you're on our email list, you've received emails about our upcoming Raleigh dinner.
Yes.
On May the 15th. It's going to be an exciting event at the Angus Barn Pavilion, gathering lots of fun and fellowship. Professor Brad Wilcox is our featured speaker for the evening. It'll be a great, fun evening, and so please avail yourself of that opportunity. We'd love to have you participate as a sponsor and bring family and friends to learn more about the Family Policy Council. So that is a great upcoming opportunity on May the 15th. So we look forward to seeing you there as well, but are just grateful for your support, your continued prayers and participation. Anything else, guys?
Got it.
All right. Well, happy Easter. God bless you and your families, and we will see you next week.
Have a blessed week.